Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation. Our project is on video games, specifically exploring patterns towards success in the video game industry. Our team is made up of myself, Edelawit, Leyah, Bert, Katherine, and Sanjana. Here's our outline today, which is based on the data pipeline. So we're going to talk about how we chose our data set, cleaned our data set, explored questions and answers regarding the data set, and finally, created models and interpreted those models to answer our questions.
So delving into our actual data set, our data set focuses on the video game industry, which has amassed over 2.7 billion players worldwide and produces nearly $37 billion in revenue every year. Now, given the sheer size of this industry, it's really valuable for developers to know which types of games are hottest on the market and what factors may contribute to sales. This is the goal of our project. Our dataset consists of over 50,000 of the best-selling games as of April 12, 2019. Columns include many different characteristics of video games, including critic and user score, genre, platform in which the game is played, total shipments, and ESRB rating, which consists of 7-letter categories that deem what audience age is most appropriate for a given game. This is a tabular dataset where each row is a single observation and the columns measure different characteristics of a particular video game.
While we produce several questions based on this dataset, today we will be focusing on only 3, which we will be discussing more later.
To perform data wrangling, we first dropped columns of no interest, such as publisher. Next, data was imputed for missing values. It is important to note that the following method made our dataset more homogeneous, and lowering the variance of our data likely skewed the models, as you will see later. Nonetheless, we performed imputation via average, as more complex methods were unavailable to us. Finally, data containing critical missing values that could not be imputed were dropped in order to give us the best dataset possible.
Now we will discuss the data exploration and modeling we did to answer our questions. Regarding our first question, how does genre affect total shipped? The graph below compares genre categories to total shipped in millions. There is an outlier here with Wii Sports, which was shipped with all Wii consoles, skewing the data for the sports genre. But as demonstrated here, none of the genres significantly dominated total shipped, but platform shooter and role-playing games do share a majority of the sales.
Now, moving on to how platform affects total shipped. As we can see, Wii, Nintendo Entertainment System, and PC are the best-selling platforms, which is surprising given that Wii is a 15-year-old system and NES is older. However, as we mentioned, Wii Sports was shipped with all Wii consoles and is the top Wii game, and NES had exclusive rights to all the original Super Mario games, which gave it an edge over the small competitor pool at the time. If these are ignored, PC becomes the best-selling platform, which makes sense given its ubiquity, popularity, and long lifetime.
So how does the ESRB rating affect total shipped? We ran a hypothesis test to see if 2 of the biggest categories, E-rated and M-rated, which stands for everyone and mature, had a significant difference between the total shipped. The p-value, or the probability of getting these results if the null hypothesis is true, was smaller than our significance level of 5%. It was so low that it was nearly 0. Therefore, we have sufficient evidence to conclude that there is a difference in total shipped between E-rated and M-rated games, with E-rated having more.
We were also interested in investigating the effect of critic score on total shipped and used a regression model that makes predictions based on neighboring data. From this, it seems that a higher critic score increases total shipped, but because of the way we imputed our data, we cannot say this definitively. However, with more data, this would be an interesting relationship to explore further. We also used a linear regression model to calculate coefficients that determine how certain factors affect total shipped. This predicted that E-rated games and games played on the Wii tend to sell the most, which are supported by our hypothesis testing and data exploration.
So now coming to our conclusion and key takeaways, our first one is that no single genre necessarily dominates international sales. Second, that older platforms can still compete with newer ones, as we saw with the Wii and NES models, and E-rated games have the greatest shipment overall, which, as supported by our hypothesis testing and regression, significantly differs from the closest M-rated categories. So from this, we know that developers will benefit from appealing to the widest audience possible, incorporating old and new systems still in play, and experimenting with all genres. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation.